very much. Are you awake?
Yeah.
I know the MTI crowd very well, and I'm sure it was late yesterday, so we also have a boring talk. All conferences love us. We never have sound, we never have video, we just have text, so we need to make sure you stay awake. Yesterday, there were loads and loads of talks about school projects. I missed the very end, so apologies if somebody mentioned it, but what we found that nobody really mentioned was teachers. And I think this talk is trying to cut teachers some slack, because there are some teachers out there who are absolutely amazing and really want to work with students and really want to actually get across ideas of new music, of electroacoustic music, of anything engaging pupils, and we found that electroacoustic music is a very good way to do that. So we are going to talk about a project called Enhancing Music Access, and it's about pedagogic content knowledge for teaching sound-based music. I'm German, and we love long titles. So the first thing is that we have condensed that to EMA, Enhancing Music Access, so that it's a bit more palatable, isn't it? So we're going to introduce what that is, and then talk a bit about previous research that led to the project. We're going to talk about the first project phase that has ended already, show you some of the data we got, and I'm going to talk about future phases where we also link into another project that Sarah is heading, and that kind of works together. So Enhancing Music Access aims at making music teaching more accessible for pupils. And also for those teachers who have to teach music but actually haven't studied it. You're not all from here, but here in primary school, you are just being told what to teach. It doesn't matter if you've studied it or not. So it could happen to any primary school teacher that the head of school says, you are going to teach music from tomorrow. And obviously that can be quite daunting. So we are addressing those teachers as well. And so we have the first phase where we have had the first phase where we focused on working with sounds and technology. And we have now broadened it because we realized that it's not only the sound and technology, but also other things that you can then combine, again, with making music with sounds. So like body percussion, singing, creative composition. We're at the moment focusing on social inclusion through group music making. So we saw it's a much broader thing, but we always want to incorporate that element of music with sounds as one of many things, because we don't believe it's the only method, but we think it's a very, very good method, and it's combinable with anything, because when you make music with sounds, it doesn't matter what you actually use in terms of, is it a sound from the environment, is it a sound from a snippet of singing, you can use everything and make something interesting and creative composition out of that. So our previous research was based on various things. So the first thing is that music technology engages learners. That's been shown for years now. So there was Savage in 2005, and he said it was quick and easy. You get a direct feedback. You all know this. You've all spent time in studios not getting out there because you got stuck because it was so engaging. Yeah? Bolt in 2008 has written a very good article called Josh Story, and it shows really that this kind of music engages learners, and it engages learners who have difficulties in concentrating, and because of this, what you see is what you get, what you hear is what you get. But that all focused on technology. So it wasn't really about what you do with the technology. It could have been a pop song, it could have been anything, but it was the kind of, we're using technology in order to make music. So my PhD here, I developed the prototype for the ES2 curriculum, which focused on learners between 11 and 14. ES2, if you don't know, is a learning environment that introduces electroacoustic music or music with sounds to children by showing who else has made it, so composers looking at what the concepts are behind electroacoustic music and also how you can make it. And Nazia Theopontos, who did also a PhD here, she actually did a curriculum for Cyprus primary schools. And Dave Holland, who's sitting over there, you can ask him about, I'm sure he's happy to tell you all about his PhD. I never know if it's 2016 or 17, you have to tell me at some point for sure. He did a project on soundscape composition with primary schools. And here we actually all of us focused on music with technology. Because it's about music. And how I make it, I don't mind, but if I need technology, I will use it. So, following from the development of the ES2 project, so that basically went, you probably all know about it because it's kind of, Interfaces has used some of ES2 if I'm rightly informed.
I'll talk about it.
You'll talk about it anyway, so here we go. Following from that, we developed, so Sarah came on board, and we developed some teachers packs that actually went alongside of the learning environment to help teachers to bridge the gap between having a resource and teaching it, because it wasn't as straightforward as we thought in the first place. So, all of this had huge potential, but we encountered some problems. So we had a learning environment that we gave to teachers that told them everything they needed to know. And we had some teachers packs that actually taught them how to do it and how to do every single lesson. So like it was spelled out by minute almost. But we realized that there was, while we gave them subject content knowledge, that's what you call the stuff you kind of teach. Let's bring them all up. And so I'm basically, can't reach, I'm too small. So while we gave them subject content knowledge, we realized that they had no community of practice, the teachers, to actually talk about with other music teachers about what they were doing. So the situation we had was that we were in a school and the teacher was really keen and she was going for it and she really wanted to teach this and was really amazed. So they don't have the problem of amazing teachers, but as soon as something went wrong, and that was that one piece wouldn't play, one piece of musique concrète, it would not play in the learning environment, she sent us an email and said, I'm cancelling this is not going to work, I'm not doing this. And we were thinking about it so much. Why was that? And we were thinking, if that had been a piece by Mozart, would that have been the same? No, she would have just taken another piece by Mozart and would say, oh, it doesn't work, I take this one, that's the same. But there seems to be not enough flexibility to do that because there's no cognitive prototype. And the cognitive prototype is when you actually know what a concept is. Yeah, so if there's no concept of what electroacoustic music is, then you can't easily exchange it with something that is almost like. And we realized there was a problem with metacognitive knowledge. Metacognitive knowledge is your knowledge about your own cognition. How do you learn? How do you bring yourself into the best place to learn? What strategies work for you? So we had 5 things that were actually where we thought, well, this person had nobody to talk to. We gave her the subject knowledge. We gave her the pedagogic knowledge because we had given her this teacher pack, but we seem to have no cognitive prototype and no metacognitive knowledge. We have, by the way, published about this, it's just come out. If anyone wants to read this in more detail, feel free. So from this, when we identified these 5 problems, we developed a model for CPD. CPD is continuing professional development. So basically continue to develop teacher practice while you're on the job. Where we actually addressed all of these different types we just mentioned. And then we tried that out. And very friendly from DMU, we got actually a little grant for that with the DMU Engage project. By the way, if anyone would like to take some pictures of us and tweet them, that would be really cool because our funding really would like us to do that. So if anyone wants to do that, then we would be both pleased about that.
With that hashtag.
With that hashtag, DMU Engage, please. Thank you. You can't really stand there with a selfie, can you? So, our first phase was actually from January to July in 2017, and we invited teachers to gain basically a community of practice by coming together. We gave them the pedagogic content knowledge and the subject content knowledge, and I'm hugely grateful to Duncan and Dave who came and were part of that project and helped us there. So we had 3 events. The first one was a think tank where we had developed basically this community of practice, get to know each other, talk about the common problems, And we started doing workshops with them where we gave them basically CPD. And that was bespoke, so the teachers could choose what they wanted to do. We had, for example, we had a special school teacher, and he wanted obviously something very different to the secondary school teacher, and the primary school teacher wanted something different too. So then we sent them out and said, try it. Go and do what we've shown you, and tell us how it went. And we observed them, and we interviewed them, and we basically then got them all back in and evaluated together with them what they actually, what they did. And then we started to create a resource that we could share with other teachers to help them to kind of benefit from what they have learned. And this is basically what's behind this cryptic here, music mesh guides. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And then we had a conference / think tank where we really shared our research results and more of the good practice between each other. So we actually shared the research result about the teachers with the teachers, and so they could actually validate our results. And that was actually a really, really lovely process to get everybody involved. So we have basically 3 steps of analysis. We had a preliminary analysis, and then we validated that with the teachers, and now we're in an intensive analysis cycle, which is as fast as teaching time allows. So we can say a few results. So basically, teachers enjoyed coming and learning, which is really good, because obviously that's a first thing you have to have. We used a platform called Slack in order to stay in touch. That worked well to start with, and then unfortunately Slack's mobile application went, I don't know, just didn't work anymore for a while, and then we obviously changed that. But using that system, it's a bit like WhatsApp and Facebook in one. They described it was like 999, because we knew when they were teaching and we had it there, and if they had a problem they could actually contact us then and there. However, they never did, because everything went smoothly. But they said also that we need basically more direct communication, so there's a real need for this exchange, for the community of practice, for the kind of, can I talk to somebody about this idea and get some feedback. And the teachers wanted to continue with the research, which is great. So I coded all the data, and basically that everybody said that during the time they tried out these different things we showed them, so there was ES2, there was a soundscape, and there was a soundscape project and a project with program went out of my head, comes back in a minute. So the engagement has basically increased in all classes, and that's really excellent. And the access has increased, because we suddenly created a level playing field. So if you think about the process, the name of the project, Enhancing Music Access, then we kind of succeeded here. We found that the CPD was successful, and therefore our model works, because the teachers owned the material, because they could go out and do it. They weren't actually dependent anymore on the teacher's pack we've given them. They used it, but they didn't necessarily need to look at it like every minute, and they were flexible enough to actually change things around if they didn't work out in the first place. And that's something we didn't actually think of before, but they trained other teachers, because somebody had a cover teacher come in, and so because that cover teacher hadn't been with us, he was like, oh, I'm just going to train you up. So that really shows that somebody can actually talk about it. And somebody, our special school teacher, he worked with a lot of other staff, support staff, and he just trained them up as well and didn't even think about that. And that was great. And we have discovered a few new teaching strategies over the process. And basically, our community of practice was very successful. So in the UK, we have to collect something called impact data. So how much does your research actually change in the society? And we did that, and so we can say that all the teachers who took part in the project, that they changed their practice because of what they learned in the project. And we asked them to reflect on their lessons, and in these data sets we found sentences like, I learned this and I tried it out, but I will take this little bit and we'll use it there, and I will take this little bit and use it in that project, and that was great. They are comfortable to pass on the knowledge to non-specialist teachers, and that's a quote, I wouldn't have had such a deep and knowledgeable view without this project. So basically, if you think about what music teachers do, they foster appreciation in children, music appreciation. And this is an indirect way of developing new audiences. Hence, that's what we're presenting here in this frame. And I'm handing over to Sarah to tell you more about the mesh guides that kind of link into the project in terms of sharing our results with the wider community.
So for Motje and I, when we did the pilot and we had this teacher ring up because the music contract didn't work, and she said, that's it, I'm pulling the plug, we're going to stop the project together, I immediately went into teacher mode and said, look, I'm a qualified trained teacher, I'll come in, Motje and I will deliver the session for you, please don't do that, we're here, we can do it. And it was when we kind of rescued her, she said, oh, that's okay then, you can come in and continue your project. So for us, that was a really kind of what we call in social science and the particular methodology around critical incident. So it created a critical incident for us in terms of how do we move teachers, traditional music teachers in England's practice to be able to open up to something innovative and new around sound-based music. So my area is looking very much at innovation and how teachers change practice, because teachers get very wedded to their own pedagogic practice and it's really hard to get change, particularly if you're introducing a whole new subject content area with which they are not familiar. So we took Schulman's model of what teacher knowledge is, and there's 7 different types of knowledge, of which subject content is one of them, and then Motje and Lee's packs that people from the MCI have worked on, they created that subject content, like Motje said, and there's also some pedagogic knowledge in there, but what we were hitting up against was, again, that sense of isolation that she didn't have anyone to talk to and we had to come in as the rescuers. So the idea here is that we are going to create a research summary of the project so other teachers can access it, and what MESH stands for is Mapping Educational Specialist Know-How. And what we say to researchers all around the world is, what is your research on and what is it that teachers need to know from your research? Because whatever teachers need to know, we can put into a flow chart that is clickable, and then you can go down to the depths of the research, but you get an overview and you get that pedagogic structure and you get that subject content knowledge structure. So we're going to link the MESH guides back to the Years 2 study packs and then give teachers hopefully a resource that they can use, that we're deepening with the second phase with the teachers we've been working with this last year, that again, because they weren't isolated, have been much more successful with the project. And we invite you as researchers to join us with the MESH guides and create anything you think teachers would need to work with in the classroom. So we've drafted the first ones for music. At the moment, because I'm in education, we're trying to create an index of A to Z of all concepts teachers need to know. They will be subject-based, curriculum-based, but also broader than that and pedagogic concepts. At the moment, we are building the music strand, okay? And this will be the opportunity to have that innovative space to create those music strands. So we have Motje leading that. We're working with colleagues, John Ordain down at Winchester University. Motje and I are working on a new book with Routledge for music mentoring in schools, and we are encouraging people to work on this project with us. I don't know how we'll do for time.
No, we've got 2 minutes, we're all right.
Okay, so this is an example of what a guide would look like, and what you'll find is that you've got the different boxes that will look at the evidence, which is the research background. You'll also have best practice in schools that teachers can look at, because teachers like to learn from other teachers. That's the other thing, is that we know how teachers don't necessarily listen to outside experts. It has to be in-house. So that's why we want to work with teachers. So it's a co-production model, and it's also deeply democratic. It's making sure that research is not done to teachers or pupils, but rather they work with us. And we've got the research and we've got the references. And the idea is that this is not static. We know that knowledge keeps on building as a cumulative, but we have to start somewhere. So we're saying let's get in there first and start to build this up collaboratively over time.
So we have started to develop a few mesh guides. You saw the listening experience, one scaffolding listening experience, and that was the first outcome out of the first phase of the EMA project, that teachers don't know how to teach listening. So we basically developed a method around that. We have started a body percussion website, mesh guide. We have done, we're trying to turn our theses, as in Dave and I, trying to turn our thesis into a mesh guide, so that what we have found in our thesis is actually available to teachers. And I've just written one on trauma therapy and singing, which is on the side. But so you see, different strands are developing, and I'd love the sound-based music strand to develop really fast, because you know, all of you will be experts on what you're doing, and if you were to help us to actually build that strand, that would be excellent. So we have more CPD meetings scheduled for 2018 and 19 with the teachers, so we carry on doing stuff. If you have something that you think might be worth sharing with teachers in such meetings, get in touch with us, and we will be very happy to introduce them to your project as well. And basically, that's what we've said already. You can contact me there, so take a photo if you want to. And that's basically it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely wonderful. So I can finish the bit I started yesterday. We musicians need these people. Otherwise, we can't bring new music to anybody. So for me, it's wondrous, A, to have the support and the knowledge that they represent, but B, to see initiatives that have come from us made more digestible for people in education. Because I, at least, am not trained in that. I haven't got a clue. I've got the idea, but I haven't got any idea how to do it. And I highly recommend, for those interested, finding out more about MESH, of which I knew nothing. Sarah introduced it to me, and I think the potential in that is simply unbelievable. So with that advert finished, does anybody have a question?
What's the hashtag again?
DMU Engage.
DMU Engage.
Thank you.
Oh, Panos, you're a big guy.
What we found is, as Lee said, so Lee and I started working together, gosh, it must be nearly 10 years ago, and it was great because we had PhD students like Nasir Theraprontis in Cyprus and Dave Holland here, and it was bringing together the music and the education in something that was truly interdisciplinary. And for us, that was also a very creative space, and it's great to see with the next ref as well, for those who have to worry about that there will be an interdisciplinary panel. So that is really great to get that fish on between music and education, and to get this more out into schools. Music is really suffering in the English curriculum. We've got a terrible system where the national curriculum has squeezed out the creative subjects. So that quote that you had about creativity, I almost made me want to cry, because A, I believe it, and B, it's exactly what is being squeezed out of the curriculum in England. And I think the consequences of that are going to be highly detrimental. So we're trying to work on the margins. We're trying to work in ways in which we can get this into schools, because we know with sound-based music, you do not need any social or cultural capital. The children do not have to have had any music tuition, because often if you're working in, for example, multicultural inner city Leicester, there are high rates of deprivation, we have high rates of migrant children. They will come with no music knowledge.
Or different music knowledge to what we would expect.
Yeah. So this is a way of making a level playing field where everyone can access and engage with the music. And with respect to the mesh, the philosophy there is to make this free at point of entry for all teachers anywhere in the world. Because it's based on a website, you just need Wi-Fi. And we know that the Wi-Fi is now available throughout most of the world. Even Sub-Saharan Africa has now 2 and 3G connections. Now, UNESCO have their Sustainable Development Goals, they have 17 for their framework for 2030. And those UNESCO Sustainable Development Goals will be around environment and global warming, but also creativity and also education.
Exactly.
And in education, we have Sustainable Development Goal 4C, which is about improving the quality of education worldwide. And UNESCO have invited us now to join their teacher task force because they see the benefit of something that is bottom up, from grassroots, with that belief that things should be free at point of entry. Sorry.
That makes you feel good, doesn't it? Excellent. Okay, well, we're going to come back to years 2 of these, and you can see what these wonderful women have done with our foundation here, and make it really relevant and real and usable in my talk, and also in David Duncan's talk, and also in the workshops later. So you can get a little bit bombarded with that, because that's our calling card as far as this subject is concerned. Thank you both ever so much.